We've been running the record label Wakan since 2007.
You guys know Wakan, right? Anyone going to Wakan Fest? Me?
I'll be there.
Loper, you got anything to say about Warpath?
Yeah. So, we started. We had worked for various other companies, and the company actually was founded in 2011. And actually, both of us started out in production and being promoters, and I had managed rock and roll bands, if you guys know what those are anymore. But yeah, like I went on tour, didn't go to college, that whole thing, trying to figure out kind of like what my lane was and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be when I grew up, so to speak. And yeah, Warpath was a natural fit, and that's why we started the company.
Cool. Yo, just real quick before we get started, the guys who are getting feedback are going to be Braxton Stowe, Gregory W, I guess. Is anyone Gregory W? I don't know why it's listed like that. And Segura Chang. Any of y'all here? Show of hands. We got one back there. Are you cool to do it today? Shit, I guess we mixed it up a little bit. Can you go get your shit? I'd appreciate it. Is it that far? What up? Yeah, we can probably squeeze you in like towards the end, but yeah. You just didn't show up. Anyways, okay, so anyone else? So yeah, so back at going to get USB. Sorry guys, we're kind of, this is the first year, so I appreciate you guys working with us, kind of just making it happen here. Okay, cool. So you guys want to start, so pretty much why I brought these guys up is I think it's super important. Besides just the production stuff, we wanted it to be about more than just like Ableton nerd shit. So like, part of what you guys want to do, I assume, because you're here, is be an artist and be a touring artist. And part of doing that is building a team around you and having a good team of people you trust and people that will represent you with good form and, pretty much just like the arms, the branches of your tree, So these guys, I've been with these guys for 8 years. I've never had another manager. And I guess we'll start. Yeah, I know. I've been trying to leave forever. So I guess we'll just start. So like building a team and getting a manager, as much as like I went for a long time before I had a manager. I get a lot of questions about just like, do you need a manager? It's more, I think that when you're ready and your music is ready and your brand is ready and all that shit is ready, it will just happen. The thing that I don't recommend is like pitching yourself to a manager, because like, when you're ready, people will gravitate towards you. And at that point, before that, you just got to do the right thing for yourself without anyone else representing you, to kind of build yourself and put yourself in that position to get represented, to where you have people looking out for you all the time, and also you can just focus on music. Like having these guys allows me to just make music and not have to trip about anything else, and start to do things like this. Like I wouldn't have been able to have the time to set this whole Producers Den thing up if I didn't have these guys watching my back literally every day of the week. I speak to you guys every single day, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, and just to kind of like riff off that, like it's a kind of a dumb analogy, but a lot of it is like we refer to it as like an artist is like a puzzle, and so like you put your team together by putting your pieces of the puzzle together, and so like the whole puzzle, when your manager piece is in place and your agent and on down the road, the lawyer and PR and TM and a multitude of other things, it's an actual representation of how you want your artist puzzle to look like. But I think if a piece is missing, and this is kind of, I guess, to riff off what you were saying, is like when you finally complete it, it's not like the artist then just gets to sit back and is like, oh, my team's gonna run everything for me. Like we speak every day, or at least every other day for sure, to talk about like what the now looks like and what's on our plate now, but what the next year looks like, what the next 3 years look like, what this could look like in a multitude of years. What are things like this to continue to not only push the music of Prototype, but the brand brand and the artist is prototype and how that looks on down the future and not just 3 months from now, a year from now. And I think there's a, I don't know, kind of like a idea that like once you have a team, it gets easier. And I would venture to say that you would say that it's not the case, like, because at that point,
Yeah.
everybody wants something.
Exactly, and also like so many doors open once you have access to someone else's like cool connections and stuff like that. So definitely doesn't get easier, and by no means like I feel like it's totally still my project, and these guys just help me make what I want to do happen. So like at no point in time does the work stop. In fact, I feel like it becomes more so once you get the right people behind you. I mean, like before I got a manager, it was okay. I was kind of just, you know, it was a different time that I got really big on SoundCloud at the very beginning, and that made my life a lot easier. But I made a lot of really shitty decisions because I was young. I didn't have anyone to be like, "Oh, bad idea, dude," or like. But you know, that's also how you kind of learn things the hard way. But you know, and also just having a group of people that you care about to build with. You know, it doesn't matter how like where you are in the lineup, or if you're even on the lineup, or how popular you are. Like that shit doesn't matter. It matters that like what you want to do is happening the way you want it to happen. So you need to spend the time thinking about ideas and things you want to do and how you want to be represented, and you know, your long-term goals. So
Yeah, I mean, I think you could really touch base on like the evolution of Liquid Stranger and how much thought was put into that to where it got to right now.
Yeah. So, you know, when we actually started the company, I did this guy named Lucky Date who was like a very electro-y kind of guy in the Bloghouse days, and had a big track with Zed and Ellie Goulding. We represented Crisley when he was in his prime and heyday, and then that, you know, that's actually how we were introduced to Max. You know, there's a, like these guys have said, there's a natural evolution of the relationship piece kind of coming into play. But I met Liquid Stranger through this guy named Lucky Date, and he was actually out on tour with Excision on 2012, I think it was. And I had met Martin, and you know, back in the day, he was doing like very, very heavy robo kind of dubstep kind of stuff, like on the Rotten records, like the Private Riot and stuff like that. But then also had this whole other side of like experimental chill out down tempo stuff that nobody was really all that familiar with. And so when I started with Martin, the idea was kind of to be able to kind of bridge the gap in between the two worlds. And, you know, we set forth a plan and, you know, laid down a foundation and a vision of how we were going to execute, like what Nate was saying, you know, what year one looked like, what, you know, if that went right, you know, obviously there's scenarios where you have to pivot and, you know, change what you're doing. But the fundamental plan was in place. And that is kind of, you know, now what you kind of see Liquid Stranger in present day looks like. It was like a merging of like the two worlds kind of colliding, where we kind of moved away from the heavy banger stuff, and not that his music's not heavy anymore, but it had some psychedelic, chill out, you know, mid-tempo-y kind of elements kind of inserted, so we could kind of bring the fan base kind of full circle. And that's honestly, I think, a big part of like kind of how he has been able to grow so significantly in the past couple of years, was from the early days of having those kind of conversations. And, you know, to be super honest with you, like Martin was no different than, you know, a lot of like what you guys were doing. You guys are all looking for your place, looking for outlets to grow your brand. There weren't labels back then, other than Jeff's Rotten label and like a couple others that would really mess with it, because they just didn't get it. It just was too weird or heavy, or, you know, and you know, I came in and pitched it to a bunch of different labels that I thought would be more appropriate, and some of which liked it but just didn't understand or see the vision. And we always kind of stuck to our guns, and that's really kind of like where Wakan came from. It was coming from a place of like not fitting in, and so we decided that it made more sense to kind of carve out our own space, and that is, you know, how I guess Wakan has kind of come to be. But it always, the key to the whole equation was being able to stick to the plans that we had kind of placed and the core values that we had tried to embody, and not deviating from that, trying to, you know, work with the people that we wanted to do. And because of that, you know, like I remember, you know, back in the day, I would always like, you know, you look at stuff online and you like see guys doing really well and playing really cool festivals, and you're like, shit, I want to be doing that. But it didn't fit with the plan at the time. And, you know, patience allowed us to kind of come full circle and stick to our guns and, you know, kind of circle back on some of those plays. Because, I mean, you know, this year we've played Bonnaroo, Coachella, you know, Lost Lands, Bass Canyon. Martin's throwing his own festival next week, which has gone so incredibly well that, you know, it's all a testament to, first off, the hard work, but then kind of sticking to the plan that we kind of set in place and being able to follow through with that. And yeah.
Well, and I think that goes like a lot with just like, there's waves of this. There is, and I think you could attest to this, is like you feel like one year, like, you know, you had a great track and like it got the momentum and it's riding high, and then the next year, and then the next year, you know, it like, you do, some festivals don't book back-to-back years, and so it's a little bit lighter on the festival circuit, and that shit gets in your head. You know, and then you start like, oh, is my career falling off? Like, you know, do people still fuck with me? Do they like me? And I think that, you know, being able to weather the storm of the slower years to see down the road and be able to take your vision to the years past that, that's the incredibly hard thing to do. But that's the kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, is to make it past these kind of like mountain and valley experiences, to continue down the path.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we have that conversation every 6 months where I'm like, can I quit yet? This sucks. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, the analogy I always use is, it's like, first off, it's just like Martin and I think myself is just a testament to the grind that like just never ends. You have to love the grind to even potentially get anywhere at all. You have to love the shit when it sucks, you know, and be able to deal with it, you know. And it's obviously that's easier said than done, but eventually it kind of becomes a skill. You're like, fuck, I know, like, you know, this sucks right now, and it really is peaks and valleys, you know. But it's like, it's what you do when you're in the valley that determines whether or not you even get to the next peak, you know. It's like a series of mountains. I'm always like wilderness analogies, but you're climbing this mountain, right? You're like, fuck, yeah, I'm gonna get my first release. It's gonna kill it. And then I'm gonna do self-release. And you're like, yeah, I did it. I got my music out. And then you're like, cool, I got to the top of the mountain. And you look left, and there's a fucking huge mountain. And you're like, all right, cool. What's next? And you're like, all right, cool. Now I got a release signed to a label, and it did okay, whatever. But I'm still not playing any shows. And it's like, all right, cool. How do I figure that out? And then from there, it's like, oh shit, I played my first festival, but I had a terrible slot on the lineup. It's just really about just like enjoying it when it's fucking whack, and that will make it so much easier to enjoy it when it's dope, you know.
I also think that there is something to be said for like the season of where we're kind of at, like producers, and it's a very competitive space. You guys know that. You guys are all sitting here amongst your peers, and there's, you know, 100 of you, and you're all kind of competing into the same lane to some extent. Even though you guys are all different, you guys can all bring, you know, songs and music that are specifically only you can do, because it's the way that you perceive that through your lens. That being said, at the end of the day, like, I've always preferred, and this is just kind of like how we like to do it as a company, but I'm not looking to hear that, I don't know, Sudden Death is unhappy with his manager, and we're just gonna come scoop in and be like, hey, what's up, man? I'd like to manage you because I'm a badass. And we as a company, we collectively try to find the people that are unknown, that are fresh, that we can kind of build with and nurture. Because look, you got, I mean, if you're really lucky, like Max, you have 8 years, 10 years, 15 years. But hitting the 15-year mark in this day and age is like unheard of. It is hard as shit. And the key to that is having a great plan and being able to have a great team of people and you know, allowing the artist to focus on really making something that is special, that caters specifically to him. But at the same time, like, you're in a very unique position because, like, you're the next generation of artists that, you know, we're looking to sign, if I'm being honest. Like, and what your value is and what you bring to, you know, the music community is like, that's what we all want. As a manager, that's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on hearing, you know, what it is the young generation of musicians can offer, and then ideally, you know, we'll be in a situation where we can, you know, not just teach you how to release great music and help with that, but then also set you up to live your life, because it's a short time span. Like, Max has, you know, surpassed a lot of artists, and I would venture to say probably half the artists that were around the same time frame of him, he has outlasted. They're not even touring anymore. They've quit. They've fallen off. They've given up. They've went and got day jobs at Subway or whatever. Went back to college. And I think that there's something to be said to loving that grind and being in a situation to outlast other people. It's a marathon. And, you know, if you have a great team of people, then that's the goal, is to continue the process for as long as you humanly can. So, and I've always found that works better when you can get ground level with an artist and start by picking up, you know, smaller acts and then teach them and help them to understand not just the music side but the life side. Because, look, I mean, and I think Max can, you know, attest to this. Like, you start getting a little bit of love and attention, and, you know, the whole world changes, and you have to be very grounded and, you know, understand that, you know, you're going, the things that you do directly today will then affect tomorrow.
Well, it's a job. Like, it's a fun job. But
Yeah.
like, at the end of the day, if you don't put in the work at the job, it affects your performance.
So that's what, okay, Warpath, that's what we prefer. I'm looking for, you know, honestly, artists that, you know, are small, and that we can kind of teach how to not just be a great musician, but teach them also not how to be a piece of shit. Once they've become, you know, relatively well known. So,
And I think a lot of guys, like, when and girls, when starting out, this shit, like what we're doing up on stage, like, it feels so far out of reach, and I feel like that's a natural feeling. Especially, like, for me, one of the things when I was starting out that felt so intangible and, like, impossible for me to get was, like, an actual release on a label that mattered to me. And so what I did is I just found a small label that fucked with me. You know, it doesn't for you, and the release absolutely crushed. It's this label called Simplify. They're from Seattle. But, I mean, that was my first release, and just because you're like someone like Dim Mak or, like, you know, Circus or Never Say Die doesn't want your tune, doesn't mean that there's not a good home that's going to get placements, licensing. They're going to like your music. People will hear it. These small labels, a lot of the small independent labels are run by rich ass people. You know, it's not like just because it's a small label, maybe it's because they want to be like that, a boutique label, you know. You don't need to shoot for the stars, at least at the beginning. Like, try and get something attainable. Find that label, find that small label that's going to create this family mentality, you know, that's really going to give a fuck about your release and put their own money into it and work their butt off, you know, to make sure that your music gets the shine that it deserves, you know. But at the end of the day, your music has to be good enough. So, like, that's one thing I always resort back to. When things don't go my way, which happens, like, every day, I'm like, I need to get back in the studio. I need to get better. Like, I'm not good enough. Like, and not in a negative way at all. But it's just a reality. Like, yo, at the end of the day, if the tune is that good, that's all you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, and to follow up on what you said about Simplify, I mean, some of your biggest sinks as an artist, when getting your songs licensed TV and movies have come from that small label.
Yeah.
And you have a multitude of releases across a large number of huge base labels.
Well, and I think that this goes for pretty much anything. Like, it is not necessarily about the namesake of the label, the manager, the booking agent. I mean, like, obviously, a lot of people come out of the gates and they shoot for the top. It's not about that. It's about finding the person who loves you the most. And if that's a small label, they will invest their time, their soul, and do everything in their power to making sure that you succeed. We have a motto at our company that if you cannot invite an artist or somebody that we work with over to a family barbecue, then you shouldn't be working with them. We started that in 2011, and we still to this day say it. Because it's about, I mean, it is a marriage. And if you are going to be working with somebody for hopefully a very, very, very long time, and it's hard. Like, you want the relationship to be there, not just on a business like level, but also as like in a friendship level. That makes things way easier. And if you love that person and you love what they do and you love what they bring to the table, you don't need to go anywhere else. You don't need some big release or some trade off your small agent for somebody bigger just because you get some hype. Go with, and this is across the board, agent, publicity, label, manager, lawyer, bookkeeper, whatever. Find the person who loves what you do and then grow with them, because that loyalty is more important than what you're going to trade it off for.
Big facts. Let's just round of applause for that. Big facts. I think we have a question here. If y'all have any questions, remember you can line up over there and we'll answer them all.
Yeah, I had a quick question. How can you make sure somebody's not trying to take advantage of you? Like, when you get to that point? 'Cause I know if they love you, it kind of gets deceiving. I've done sales for a while, so I know a good aspect now. Kind of like, if somebody loves you too much, or like, they could be trying to deceive you.
Yeah, I think, I guess it's contingent a little bit on the situation, but I think that, if said person has a roster of other artists, I think you were referred to us by another artist, but I mean, I'm almost positive you talked to other artists about us before signing to us. I mean, like, I think that there are certain questions you can ask other people to see if they felt taken care of and comfortable. I think the tough part with this question is if, it's a friend that really is passionate about the music business and wants to work on the project with you. I don't know, that's kind of like, it's hard to ask that kind of question.
I'll also say this too, like, we all have this thought process, and I know that I used to have it too, that contracts are bad. And I think a lot of times, like when you're starting out, you're offered all these contracts, whether it be a small label, a big manager, a small manager, whatever. And automatically, most smaller acts that I have worked with in the past, they see this contract and they're like, holy shit, this is like a 15-page banger and I don't know what any of this says. Well, look, there is a very big misconception about what a contract is. Contracts are there to protect you. They're there to protect your interest and the said party's interest. Like, you don't want to get taken advantage of? Cool. That's fine. I don't want to get taken advantage of either. But find the person that you don't think is going to take advantage of you. Draw up an agreement. Have your lawyer pay the money for it. Hire a lawyer. Have them review it. And have that lawyer protect your interest. Just to make sure. Look, there is some cost that goes along with being an up-and-coming producer. And I know that that's not easy. But there's a huge misconception that contracts are bad. Contracts are not bad. They are there to implement black and white so you know what is expected of the other party and that you can hold them accountable to that. And so to make sure that you're not being taken advantage of, have an agreement, please. I don't know if that necessarily answers your question completely, but that's where I would start for sure.
I feel like that's a great point, because a little story, if you don't mind.
I got taken advantage of by some guy in Chicago. I used to go by Lobo, and I made all the music for the brand, and this dude was going under the same name, right? So he kind of hit me with the whole, if you don't drop the name, I'm going to sue you, blah, 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 this and this. We winded up making it a duo, and keep in mind, I made all the music before I even met this guy. So he's good with like the business part, and he kind of took advantage of me. Winded up doing stuff to force me out of the group. I left, and he copywrote all my music under his name. So that, one, it put me in a big depression, like for the longest time, and two, it's like, how do you make sure that doesn't happen again? How do you copyright like your stuff like at the beginning, like your trademark your logo, like everything like that, you know what I mean? So that way, in case something like does happen again, you don't get screwed over.
Trademarking is a convoluted mess. It costs a lot of money to do it, and there's certain marks that you have to implement to trademark stuff. Honestly, like in my honest opinion, that is one of those things where in the early days you don't need to be focused about trademarking anything. That comes with time. Once you have a brand and have created a brand that's actually worth something.
Right on that, actually, like, it was legit, dude. Like, really fucking legit. That's why this guy was a wolf and took advantage of me. And, like, so...
Well, if you would have had an agreement with him in the beginning, that wouldn't have happened.
And see, I didn't know that. This dude, like, went to school for music and business and everything, but couldn't make a track to save his life. But sharked me, big time. You know, like, that, I come from a small town, like a little shit town. Las Vegas, New Mexico. Most of you probably never heard of it. So, like, we don't really... We're like segregated, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So like all my knowledge and information just come from YouTube, but you don't know where to look either. Like so many people
and that's why we're here. And just so you guys know, like, well, all of our information was up on the screen, but like the idea of this is to put to be able to make it so that the power is also in your hands. Like that's the reason why we put the information up there, so you know you guys could reach out if you have questions. Like. There's no differential between us, and that's the thing is like I understand that there's a lack of understanding about this big, weird, convoluted mess that is the music industry, but that's the whole reason why panels like this exist. Like, you know, ask the hard questions so you can be more informed and educated, and you know that's the thing is like I think that there's certain building blocks and steps that kind of take place after the fact that you built the brand. And, you know, the natural things after you've got some momentum and, you know, things have started to roll out. But there's always going to be bad people. There are always going to be people that try to take advantage of you. I know, like, I mean, there's lots of managers that are not ideal human beings. And that's why you have to do your due diligence to, you know, make sure and vet who you're actually working with long before you actually do anything for them. I mean, you guys have the gift, you have the power, you guys create the music, and if somebody wants to come in and, you know, naturally create an entity in your scenario, that's great. Like, if they do their job too. But if, you know, it's just, you know, a wolf in the you know, sheep shed or whatever it is, you have to vet that stuff out long before. And that doesn't mean that necessarily it's not going to happen, but I guarantee you, you've learned from that experience and you're better for it. So,
thank you, appreciate it.
Of course. Good luck.
Okay, so from like a pioneer standpoint, having no scene in your state, what is the best way to build a following and connect everyone to get shows and stuff going in your own state that doesn't have a music scene like that?
Well, if there's no shows, how are you going to play them?
We already have shows. We've been playing them. My question is what is a good way to get noticed more and get people more into the music and the scene?
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like I mean, from when we were promoters, and I think that this kind of gets lost, we talk about it often, is like, we were promoters a little bit before, I mean, it was like when MySpace was around. So, you know, for us, it was...
when we were at Zanga.
Yeah, Zanga and MySpace, I know. So, we passed out flyers. We went and met people face to face. We went to other shows and we're like, hey, this might be a little outside your comfort zone, but we have this thing on Wednesday nights. It's a dance party. It's $5 to get in. You know, everybody from all over comes and plays it, and it was just a slow and steady build. Like it wasn't something that kind of just like happened overnight, but it was like one person by one person, and then that person told their friends. And I know that that sounds taxing, but honestly, I mean, it helped essentially create. I'm not saying that it's all on us, but essentially it helped create a scene in the city that we're from, which is Oklahoma City. And it was this it was this weekly dance party that grew into this thing that ran for 10 years and sold out a 350 cap every Wednesday night for 10 years straight.
So would you say that consistency of promotion and just keeping with it is the best way to get a scene going?
Yeah, I think it's about just continue to show up, continue to invite people, have something that is worth coming to. And that's what we kind of talk about with Wakanda.
I think if there's shows that are already kind of taking place that you're trying to get on to expose yourself to more people, and this is a relationship business. Like the people that excel are the ones that have the relationships. So if you want to expand your horizons, go out and build those relationships, just like I did, just like he did, just like Max did. That's a big part of it, is connecting. Go to those shows where those are taking place. Introduce yourself, get involved, be friendly. If I invite them out for coffee, go get a drink at the bar with them, and get to know them as people, because at the end of the day, that's going to benefit you more because there's an actual relationship, and then that will segue into them liking what you do, because it's at that point it's not just about the music.
What if it's a ground zero situation where we are the people actually doing it?
Like what Nate said, you got to go build it.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My question was, what music distribution services do you use as like a big label to like make sure your revenue is stable? Like, do you use online distribution services, or do you have your own way of doing it?
Wakan's run through Label Engine, and I think anybody can sign up for that, and then it's all monitored through their back end. I also use TuneCore, DistroKid,
CD Baby.
yes, CD Baby a couple of years ago.
Then bigger distribution companies, like there's InGrooves, there's The Orchard, Fuga. There's more like top tiers. I mean, like almost everybody I know uses at least some of the back end of Label Engine. If you wanted my honest opinion, and when Wakan originally started, we did a deal with InGrooves, which is run by a major label, and honestly, it was like the worst experience ever. It was a nightmare. The accounting was terrible. Releases would come out, things would be incorrect. We switched to a very, very, very small mom and pop distribution company called Label Engine that's owned by a guy named Lazy Rich, back from the Electro days. If any of you guys know him, I might be dating myself. I don't know. Label Engine. It's LABEL-engine. I think that they are by far the easiest, most effective, kindest way to do your distribution. I think it's like, I don't know, $10 to $15 to upload a record or a single or something, and then they do an EP scale and a full length scale. You can build out your profile, monetize through YouTube, the whole nine.
It goes to Beatport, which doesn't happen with TuneCore and DistroKid, or at least to my knowledge it didn't used to. Also, statistics-wise, it breaks down where all of your streaming is coming from, Apple Music streams, Spotify. It has a Spotify chart tracking playlist, so it can track if you're getting added to anything. I'm a huge advocate for Label Engine, but I do have artists that use both TuneCore and DistroKid, and I've only ever had just very minor issues with both. Nothing that I wouldn't say I wouldn't recommend them.
Of course.
Yeah, I guess first off, thank you for what you did with Wakan, or else there's a whole sound I might have never heard. So that's really cool, guys. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Where are your A&R guys currently getting exposed first to people that you would potentially sign? Where are they?
You're looking at the A&R team, the label manager team, the accountant team. I mean, pretty much look, just like what Headband dude, I don't know your name, sorry. Nathan was saying, it's like, look, we've been in some bad situations too. Like, bad people still exist no matter what tier of artist you are. And, you know, the label wasn't originally ran by us. Like, it's something that because we manage Martin or Liquid Strange or whatever, we kind of took on because of that and stepped in and intervened. At the end of the day, like, we try to keep things pretty in-house. All of our merch, every single piece of Wakan merch that any of you ever might buy and or wear has been shipped by us too, which for the record is patience on that. If you ever buy merch, sorry in advance. It's a process. But that being said, it's like we have trust issues, like straight up, and we, even though we try to outsource as much as we can effectively, we're very careful about who we outsource and who we partner with because of that reason. And so, to answer your question, that was my new track. Hope you like it. You know, we wear a lot of hats for that reason, and that's a big part of, I think, also our success, and to be honest, our weakness. Because look, I manage, you know, a lot of clients. I now run a record label. We have a festival next week. I mean, there's only so much time in the day. I mean, Wednesday I worked 19 and a half hours, and my wife was pissed. But the fact is that is part of it when you're still always searching for the right team of people to connect with and service those areas of need. So.
Well, I say a lot of times, I mean, honestly, the algorithm through Spotify plays through. We believe in uploading to Bandcamp for everything. It's another source of revenue. One, there is a whole user base of people that only use Bandcamp to listen to releases, and I think that having your music in every facet, which, you know, again, Label Engine does, but then you can also run your sales from Bandcamp through Label Engine so that it's all, your accounting's right, so nobody feels like they're not getting paid what they should be paid. But all of those...
Second drop.
all of those things run, so I mean, like, we're listening to those and what it populates to play. But also, our artists do a great job at A&Ring. I mean, if the track's good enough, I can't tell you how many times I've had an artist that I've worked with, whether it's the label or the manager side, and they come up and they're like, have you heard this track? This kid's super young. He just put this track out. I've heard it drop like twice at a festival, and then I went and looked it up, and he has like 100 SoundCloud followers. Check this track out. And that's really where a lot of relationships with our artists have started.
That's how it started with me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all the time we got, guys. If you got your tunes on the USB stick for feedback, bring them up. Let's get it. But make some noise one time for Nate Lopez.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think it's a video. Come on up, man. My brother. We'll get you a mic. Alright. Introduce yourself.
Yo, what's up, y'all? I'm Andy.
Say something about your track. Where are you from?
From South Texas, but I live in LA. Been there since I was like 13, so like half my life. I guess we can just run track one.
Track one?
Yeah, I put a few on there, just in case.
Alright. So, track one it is. Sorry, guys. Okay, so the first thing that I noticed that I feel like what might have helped this track out is better sound selection. So like it felt like at times there were like so many different identities to the tune. It was like, when I say sound selection, I mean like the type of kick drum and the type of snare drum like felt a bit conflicting at times. Like right at the drop, it was like a break style beat pattern, and then it kind of went into like almost like a Moombahton beat pattern, and then straight to house. So like, not that you shouldn't mix all genres, because you should do whatever the fuck you want, but like if you're gonna do it, you need to find sounds that make sense in like across the board, you know. And also I feel like with house music, one of the most important relationships, and with all electronic music, but with house music specifically, the relationship between the kick drum and the sub bass is super important. And I felt like it was kind of missing the identity there. Like it was just kind of like one long note. What I probably would have done is found a kick drum that actually had, you know, like I feel like there's two different types of kick drum. There's ones that are just like punchy, and then there are ones that actually have boom sub notes, like actually giving low end frequency. I would have picked that type of kick drum, and that would have cleaned up your mix a little bit, so your basses would come through. But I like the ideas overall, man. They were good. All right, cool. We have a break now. I think we got to figure out this video while that was going on. But up next is Sullivan King.